Thanks for joining me. For those of you new to the channel, my name is Mindy Mandell, and what I do on this channel is I talk about one of Plato's dialogues in each video. And my goal is to show you the continuity of thought that connects them all together. I do put out a new video once a week, so I hope you'll think about subscribing. Today I'm going to talk about the dialogue Lysis. This is a short dialogue that is about friendship, although actually there's quite a bit more going on here. So let's get into it. Even though on the surface this dialogue is about friendship, on another level what Plato is doing here is he's introducing some of the terminology and the concepts that we're going to use when we get to the theory of forms. Namely, Socrates is going to focus on like and unlike. But first, let's see how the dialogue opens. It opens with Socrates walking from the academy to the Lyceum. Now, this is something of an anachronism because the academy is actually Plato's own school. It didn't open until some 12 years after Socrates' death. The Lyceum, however, was around in Socrates' lifetime. It was a gymnasium, and also there's a grove, and it is mentioned in a few other dialogues as well as this one. And then later, of course, it became associated with Aristotle's peripatetic school. Well, Socrates explains that there is a wall, yes, that is a wall, that runs the length of the distance between these two buildings. And then there's a road outside of the wall, and it's a beautiful road, that is a straight path from one place to the other. And it's on this path that he's walking. Well, at some point along the way, Socrates reaches a gate. And this gate leads to what is called the spring of Panops. We know that's water because of the color. So the spring of Panops is dedicated to Hermes. Panops literally means all-seeing, and that's a reference to the god Hermes, who was the messenger of Zeus. Okay, so somewhere near this spring, he's stopped by some young men, and they tell him there's a new palestra. Now, palestra is a wrestling gym, and they tell him that then, in addition to exercising, there's also a fair amount of conversation going on. The teacher at the school is a sophist named Mycus. Now, Mycus is not a major character in this dialogue, but Socrates is curious to test the wisdom of the boys who study with this sophist. And so the boys invite him back to the palestra, and he agrees to go. As they're walking, he's going to chat a bit with the boys. There's one boy named Hippothales, and Socrates says to him, I have received from heaven the gift of being able to detect at a glance both a lover and a beloved. And by the way, all of our translations today, as you see on the screen, are by J. Wright. So Socrates has this gift. He can tell when someone is in love or when someone is loved. And so Hippothales says, yes, Socrates, you're right. And he starts to gush about a boy named Lysis. Lysis is good looking, and he's kind, and he's intelligent, and on and on and on. Well, Socrates suggests to Hippothales that it's not actually Lysis that he's in love with. He's enamored with the status of winning Lysis. He says, if you succeed in winning such a youth as you describe, all that you have said and sung will redound on your honor and be, in fact, your hymn of triumph. So think, for example, of high school. Someone who's not popular might want to date one of the popular kids and gain a little high school status off that person. So the idea of dating someone who is popular, very beautiful, or very outgoing can bring you social status. Socrates is saying this is what Hippothales is really drawn to. But he gives him a warning. He says all connoisseurs, therefore, in matters of love, are careful in praising their favorites before they have won them. He's suggesting here that flowery language will only make Lysis harder to catch because Lysis will grow arrogant. Well, Hippothales hears this and he's impressed by Socrates' wisdom about love. He says, I put myself in your hands, and I beg you to give me any advice you may have to bestow. Well, now at this point, we have to pause because we have to wonder, what is Socrates doing? It sounds like he's telling Hippothales to play games with Lysis, to pretend he's less interested than he really is, to act nonchalant, to play it cool. Well, we've all played these games ourselves. We've probably had them played on us. But certainly by the time we reach adulthood, I think at least most of us find these games rather childish, even annoying. So we have to ask ourselves, how can Socrates be talking this way? Here's a question we want to hold on to. Why does Socrates say that there is a certain way for a lover to talk to a beloved? I will come back to this at the end of the video. The answer is going to hinge on the issue of what friendship is. And this conversation will evolve into something of a dialectic on the like and the unlike. Well, all of that was really just the introduction. So now that we're through the introduction, Socrates has reached the palaestra and he strikes up a conversation with Lysis. Now this conversation starts off in a light-hearted way. Socrates says, "Well, if your father and mother love you and wish you to become happy, it is clear that they try in every way to make you happy. To be sure they do. They allow you then, I suppose, to do what you wish, and never scold you or hinder you from doing what you want to do." "Yes, but they do though, Socrates, and pretty frequently too." Okay, so it's a lighthearted conversation. They're toying with the fact that Lysis is still a young boy. He doesn't have a whole lot of freedom. Ironically, though, actually, the name Lysis actually means liberation. And yet, despite having the name liberation, he has very little freedom in his life. Well, this conversation continues a bit more, and eventually Socrates and Lysis conclude that we are trusted in matters in which we have knowledge, but not in others. All matters of which we have a good idea will be put into our hands. With regards to matters, on the other hand, into which we have acquired no insight, no one will ever allow us to act as we think proper. All right, well, from here, Lysis's cousin Menexenus joins the conversation. These two boys are friends, and Socrates tells them that friendship has always puzzled him. As soon as one man loves another, which of the two becomes the friend, the lover of the loved or the loved of the lover? Or does it make no difference? So they're going to raise a few questions here. Does love have to be returned to be real? Can love go one way only? And then how about friendship? We often hear that you can love someone who doesn't return the feeling, but does friendship work the same way? So they're going to discuss these questions a bit, but I'm going to jump at this point because their conversation does eventually evolve into a discussion about the like and the unlike. However, we need to keep in mind through all of this that this is still one of the early dialogues. Plato is not yet developing the metaphysics. If you're familiar with the metaphysics, you will recognize it here. But what he's doing here is he's laying the groundwork by introducing the concepts and the terminology that will really be developed in later dialogues. Here's an example. "And also with the writings of those learned sages which tell the same story, namely, like must of necessity be ever friendly with like. And these are they, if I mistake not, who talk and write on nature and the universe." He's now going to clarify this point. "But they mean to say, I imagine, that the good are like and friendly with the good, but that the bad, as is remarked of them in another place, are not ever like themselves, but are at variance and not to be reckoned upon. And if a thing be unlike and at variance with itself, it will be long, I take it, before it becomes like to or friendly with anything else." So now Socrates has brought in the ideas of good and bad. He has connected good with like and bad with unlike. Now this has not yet been developed to a point where we can feel confident about it, but he has put the terms on the table for our consideration. And that's really what I see as the goal of these early dialogues. So it's not that Plato hasn't yet developed his ideas. Rather, I think it's that he is challenging us to develop ours. Well, Socrates is going to go on to say, the good man is a friend to the good man only, but the bad man never engages in a true friendship, either with a good or a bad man. Socrates distinguishes three classes here. I recognize three distinct classes: good, evil, and that which is neither good nor evil. Now from here, Socrates is going to make a case that is going to seem puzzling on the surface. He says that the good person needs nothing and so is not drawn to the goodness of others. Let's see how he does this. Will not the good man, insofar as he is good, be found to be sufficient for himself? Yes. And if he does not want anything, he won't feel regard for anything either. To be sure not. And what he does not feel regard for, he cannot love. Not he. How then, I wonder, will the good be ever friends at all with the good, when neither in absence do they feel regret for each other, being sufficient for themselves apart, nor when present together have they any need of each other? Well, this is a strange argument because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of friendship. Of course, good people want to be friends with good people. So I think the idea here for Plato is to introduce these terms in regards to metaphysics. This argument will make sense in terms of metaphysical terms. The idea of self-sufficiency will come into discussions of the highest metaphysical terms. It's not so applicable in this current context. So I think Plato is giving us this idea to hold on to for later dialogues. It's not completely useless here, though. Socrates is giving us this idea that the good does not befriend the good, and that allows him to develop his next argument. Now that the good is friendly with good, or evil with evil, or good with evil, we're hindered by our previous arguments from believing. It remains, then, that if there be anything friendly with anything, that which is neither good nor evil must be friendly either with the good or with that which resembles itself. For nothing, I'm sure, can be friendly with evil. This argument actually gets us closer to where we want to be, because nobody is completely good. And so the earlier argument had that flaw in it. It didn't quite fit the human level. When we look at ourselves and the people around us, we see that we are all, for the most part, basically good, right? We do have some negative qualities, to be sure, but we are a mix of good and bad, or healthy and unhealthy qualities. And Socrates is saying here that we're drawn to two kinds of people. We're drawn to those who we see as truly good, whether that means they're wise or talented or just popular and beautiful. But we are drawn to those we see as really good, and we're also drawn to those who remind us of ourselves. Now, Socrates is going to take it one more step. He'll make an argument that is very similar to one that we're going to find when we get to the dialogue, the symposium. And the symposium is one of the middle dialogues. So first he's going to set it up like this. When it is not yet evil, though evil be present with it, this very presence of evil makes it desirous of good. But the presence which makes it evil deprives it at the same time of its desire and friendship for good. For it is no longer a thing neither evil nor good, but already evil. And evil, we said, cannot be friendly with good. Okay, there's a lot here to unpack, so let's take a look at what he's saying here. So the average person is neither good nor evil, but a mix of the two. And when we look at ourselves, we see ourselves as basically good, but we do see some flaws. And very likely we want to be better. We want to improve in those areas. We all have room for growth. And so it is the good in us that makes us desire improvement. But if you were to shift the balance such that a person is more unhealthy than healthy, then they're going to reach a place where they no longer desire health because they're quite satisfied with their current state of mind. And now that he has made this point, we're going to see how he builds his argument. On the same ground, we may further assert that those who are already wise are no longer friends to wisdom, be they gods or be they men. Nor again are those friends to wisdom who are so possessed of foolishness as to be evil, for no evil and ignorant man is a friend to wisdom. There remains then those who possess indeed this evil, the evil of foolishness, but who are not as yet, in consequence of it, foolish or ignorant, but still understand that they do not know the things they do not know. When we get to the symposium, we're going to see that Socrates will make more or less the same case. The gods don't seek wisdom because they already have it. So now our earlier point about self-sufficiency makes more sense, right? This is really where it fits. That notion applies to the gods. So the wise do not seek wisdom because they already have it. And as for the ignorant, they don't seek wisdom because they think they already have it. So only those who are neither wise nor ignorant seek wisdom. In the symposium, Socrates calls these people lovers of wisdom, or philosophers. He does the same here in this dialogue too. And thus you see, it is those who are neither good nor evil as yet that are friends to wisdom, and the Greek word here is philosophers. But those who are evil are not friends, nor again are the good. Socrates is going to build further on this point in the symposium, and that dialogue is about the connection between love and beauty. But today's dialogue, Lysis, is still one of the early dialogues, so it's introducing these concepts and the terminology that Plato is going to build on later. Okay, that brings us to our last point, and the one that finally answers the question that we've been holding on to from the introduction. Right? You have been holding on to it, right? Why does Socrates say that there is a certain way for a lover to talk to a beloved? Well, the last part of the dialogue builds the argument that friendship is for the sake of the good. Here are the kinds of arguments that Socrates gives. He says, the sick man is a friend to the physician, is he not? He is, on account of sickness, for the sake of health. What he's leading to here is a maxim of his, that we always seek what we deem to be good. He's saying the same thing here. We seek friendship because we think it will be good for us. So maybe we like someone because they're funny, or maybe they're smart, or maybe we like them because they're beautiful. Maybe they challenge us to look at life differently. Or maybe we just think that they'll bring us popularity. Or it's possible they're just fun to hang out with. Whatever the reason, we seek some benefit. And what Socrates is saying here is that the best friendships are mutually beneficial. Now, in the first part of the dialogue, Socrates gave something of a tongue-in-cheek presentation of this idea. Remember, he was telling Hippothales that flattery would inflate Lysis's head. In other words, it would benefit neither of them. Hippothales would not get the boy he wants, and so he would not be benefited, and Lysis would get a big head, and so he would be worse for that relationship, so he would not be benefited. But the best friendships are mutually beneficial. Well, this maxim of Socrates is that we always seek what we deem to be good. It will come up various times throughout the dialogues, as well as other ideas that were introduced here. So this dialogue is a good setup for what is to come. And that wraps up our look at the Lysis. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Also, I hope you'll think about liking the video. Next week, we're going to wrap up our look at the early dialogues with one called Greater Hippias, or in some translations, it's called Hippias Major. And I do hope you'll join me. Thank you.